Welcome to our panel on Comrades and Co-Conspirators, an intergenerational conversation on survivor-led organizing. This is a part of our youth track curated by Girls for Gender Equity. And my name is Michelle Grier. I'm your host, and I'm the Senior Director of Programs at Girls for Gender Equity. We are a Brooklyn-based organization working intergenerationally with national influence, working to combat the widespread gender-based and racialized violence that young people of color experience. And we do this through direct service, advocacy, and culture change, believing that working alongside young people in this fight is the way forward to our liberation. I am so grateful to be in conversation with our panelists this afternoon to discuss the importance of organizing together across the age spectrum around our healing, survivorship, and culture change. At this current moment of pandemic and mass uprisings, as many folks from across the country stand up to say, her life matters and Black Lives Matter, it is crucial that we identify the ways in which we can support one another. What we know is that the spaces that are supposed to support and nourish our young people can also be sites of harm. Young people are experiencing sexual harassment and sexual their home, at work, and many they go unbelievably. What we have learned from our aunties, cousins, moms, and grandparents is that this is not a story, but one that is in the fabric of colonialism, slavery, a way of controlling power over systems, transgender bodies, Black and brown, LGBT. We have also learned how to survive, heal. We are now cultivating strategies that connect space, place, and age, so we can raise our voices, say no, our wonderful they are Tara McDonald of the Firecracker Foundation, Najma of the Young Women's Freedom Center in San Francisco, and Vivian Anderson of EveryBlackGirl Inc. in Columbia, South Carolina. I am so grateful to be in community with these amazing folks today. And to get us started in this conversation, we're going to ease back and listen to the experiences, the work, and best practices of these folks. And so we are going to start with Tara Scott Miller, who is the program director of Sisters in Strength at the Firecracker Foundation. Sisters in Strength Lansing is an expansion of the Firecracker Foundation's current teen club programming, utilizing an adaptive version of the Sisters in Strength curriculum developed by Girls for Gender Equity, based in Brooklyn, New York, and is a part of the national Me Too movement. She is an alum of the New York University and has explored the intersections of race, gender, culture, media, and psychology during her undergraduate studies and later received her MA from Tisch School of the Arts. For the past 14 years, Tara has followed the deep call to bridge her holy curiosity in cognition and behavior to the spiritual foundations of mindfulness, immersing herself in the study and practice of collective healing. She is an experienced meditation teacher, founder of a contemplative community, and a curator of transformative sacred spaces dedicated to justice, liberation, and healing practices. Tara has designed and facilitated numerous workshops, launched her healing justice practice, Radical Badichi, you'll have to correct me if I said that wrong, in 2017, helped to seed the first transformative justice cohort in her community, and continues to develop her knowledge, capacity, and skills in service of intersectional justice and abolitionist teaching. We are so excited to be in conversation with her today.
Thank you, Michelle, for that introduction. I sound good when I hear it coming from your mouth. I am Tara Scott Miller. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I am a Black woman with brown skin. My hair is styled in red braids with an undercut, so it is shaved on all sides. I have on large hoop earrings. I have a nose ring, and I'm wearing a dark orange sweater, although my son would say it's red, and it's layered over a navy blue tank top. And I am truly honored to be here representing the Firecracker Foundation as the program director for Sisters in Strength Lansing. But before we go deeper into the conversation, I have to pause. And I have to invite us all to pause, to honor and acknowledge all that we're holding in light of our personal and collective losses. I know that we are here today with and in spite of our heartbreak and heartache. I know that we are here with and in spite of our grief, anguish, and rage, all of which are sacred, worthy of our making space and grace to acknowledge, tend to, and to grant some breathing room to whatever is showing up in our bodies, hearts, and minds right now. And I also know that we are here fueled by love, courage, and deep commitment to this liberatory work. And I'm sitting in the both and everything in between because this is a sacred time of celebration for me. 2 days ago, on the 24th, my family celebrated my grandmother's 89th birthday. And that day also marked the first anniversary of my accepting the call to join the Firecracker Foundation, which celebrated its 7th year in July. And today, the 26th, actually marks the first anniversary of me literally walking into the room to begin seeding connection with the youth in our Sisters in Strength program. But I did not enter that co-learning space thinking of myself as a comrade or co-conspirator. Those are not the precise words that I would have reached for back then to describe who I am or how I approach my vocation. I entered first and foremost as a Black woman who once was a Black girl who has survived a lot. I entered as a Black woman who has been called and committed to blueprinting new legacies of being in loving and transformative relationship with ourselves, with our loved ones, and within the various spaces we call community. I entered as a Black mother and auntie, invested in the wellness and the liberation of my son, my nieces, and nephews. I entered as a Black woman who has for decades been invested and immersed in my own personal healing, and who has been invested and immersed in the study and practice of collective healing, as a Black woman who curates sacred space for soul care and deep curiosity, inquiry, and discernment. So being the word nerd that I am, I got curious about the root of these words, of their essence, and how they can be embodied and practiced and lived into beyond the prescribed written definitions. So as I prepare for this, I've been contemplating what it means to be a comrade, to be a companion. I mean, a word that literally comes from the root of being in a room together, being quartered in a room together. Been contemplating what it means to be a co-conspirator, someone who acts in harmony toward a common end. And the essence of that, to conspire, is to breathe with. And I know that well. This is actually how I have described my work as a healer, as a spiritual director, as a facilitator of contemplative practices, in my work with Radical Bodhicitta. I've showed up in these spaces as a good spiritual friend, right? Like as a young person, I knew what it meant to be a friend. I've been living into that. We've all been living into that, into friendship. But being a comrade, a co-conspirator wasn't language that was available to me as a youth. But as a good spiritual friend, I am a companion who sits alongside of and breathes with and learns with and holds space with folks in solidarity and harmony toward our common end or our shared values. So I can say, yes, this is who I am in relationships, period. This is how I show up with my youth to co-create our community of accountability and care by putting our connection first, by organizing first around the quality of our relationships, by creating a space of refuge where they can rest, release, be heard, understood, accepted, and fully embraced, by cultivating the fertile soil out of which trust and accountability and care can grow. So yeah, my youth and I are conspiring together in our healing, our transformation, and our liberation. We are conspiring to protect our imaginations, our hope, our joy, our possibilities, our futures, and our legacies.
It's beautiful. Thank you so much for that. And I apologize for getting your name wrong in the beginning. So just so much appreciation. Appreciate you. So we'll move over now to hear from some wonderful, wonderful organizers in the Bay with the Young Women's Freedom Center. And I will start with introducing Najma Douglas, who is a Black mother and community organizer. She stands for the liberation of Black and brown, cis, transgender girls and women and non-gender conforming folks and youth justice. Najma sees so much beauty in life's obstacles and memorable events. With so much practical knowledge, she hopes to take back the Black and brown narrative, gain and maintain financial literacy in communities malnourished, educate young and old on the justice system and how we can use it as a tool in order to affect intergenerational growth and hold herself and each other accountable, responsible for the sole success of our community going forward. She loves advocating and focusing predominantly on the youth for the simple fact that they are today and the future. Black excellence is close to her spirit and a dear, dear part of her heart. She holds herself to high standards so her beautiful children can do the same to continue a lineage of royalty. Through education, conscious knowledge, emotional intelligence, and self-awareness, she is liberating her people. So Najma will go first, and then Julia Arroyo will go second. And Julio is the second generation born stateside in the US and is of Mexican Filipino descent and identifies as Chicana. This work is personal to her, having had involvement in the underground street economy, foster care, and incarceration. Julia has transformed her life and is committed to supporting a marginalized community of girls to break free from systemic and interpersonal violence. She is currently majoring in women's studies at San Francisco City College, has a background in community health work, rape crisis support, and working with sex workers, sexually exploited youth. They are representing Young Women's Freedom Center today and themselves. We are so excited to be in conversation with y'all. Thank you.
Hi. Go ahead, Michelle. I apologize.
Nope, that's to you. It's all to you. You're good.
Well, welcome all. Thank you so much. Najma, she, her, hers. I'm so grateful to be in community with all of you and be able to take this moment out on a lovely Saturday to do the work that matters. There's always time for the work that matters. To start out, I know there was some questions that were asked of us as those with lived experience and those that are comrades and conspirators with the young folks most affected. To start off, we wanted to know why we should prioritize survivors in this movement. And I believe that it's inevitable. They are the experts. They know what needs to be done to be able to heal and create healing generationally for those that have been impacted today and in the past. I believe with radical solution and accountability to those survivors, we'll be able to center and prioritize those that have been affected, the most marginalized, being cis, trans women, girls, and gender nonconforming folks. And we'll be able to not heal, but create a new beginning for those in the movement. Also, what does intergenerational collaboration look like? Just as Tara touched base on Comrades and Co-Conspirators, how can we collaborate? How can we co-conspire with each other and uplift those that are most affected? Moving in intergenerational spaces, those that are the youngest and the oldest need to be put at the forefront of this movement. And again, they have the answers and they know what is best to be able to navigate this movement to liberation and abolishment of systems that have harmed us and that have brought us down for hundreds of years. And also staying survivor-centered and coming from a place of healing and not harm. When we put healing at the forefront, harm reduction and harm informed and trauma informed, we'll always be able to lead some type of healing throughout the movement as well. Just to highlight some of the work that we're doing here in the Bay Area and at Young Women's Freedom Center, we are based in San Francisco. Our headquarters is in San Francisco, but we do have centers and locations all over California, some being in Oakland, San Jose, LA, and parts of the South, San Bernardino, Modesto. But we do have a Sister Warriors Freedom Coalition that touches base and is more focused on the collaboration of intergenerational spaces and putting gender violence and gender healing at the forefront. And our Sister Warriors are national. Just to uplift some of the charter work and the mission and vision and plan of Young Women's Freedom Center, we do have a freedom charter, and it's a 10-year plan to have liberation and abolishment and transform systems. And again, those are predominantly focused and prioritized with our cis, trans, girls and gender nonconforming folks to be able to heal, uplift, and teach and educate those in the movement and our allies alongside the movement. To be able to support these survivors, may you be caregivers, comrades, parents, allies, or fellow survivors, again, we need to prioritize those that are most affected. Being able to heal, reclaim our power, change the narrative, and reshape those that have been impacted will be able to embody self-determination, sisterhood, survivorship, spirituality, and social justice, all in one bundle and ball of life and joy. And I'm going to pass this along to Julia.
Thank you. Thank you, Najma, so much. And thank you all. I just want to first say that I'm moving off of a lonely land, that I'm just recognizing the original caretakers of this land and also the forced land and labor that came from Black and Indigenous folks that currently stand here to this day. And I also want to acknowledge too that I am the direct result of many women's resistance throughout time, starting with my namesake of Julia, which was my grandmother who was born in Oaxaca. And after the Mexican Revolution and the land was taken. And so she started a forced migration up to the States And I just want to acknowledge her journey that she went through. And I also want to acknowledge my dog, my husband, and my daughter that are all keeping it cool in the background for me. We're in one room. So yeah. And with that just being said, I wanted to acknowledge all of those because she also experienced a lot of violence coming up here. And by the time she got to the States, she developed a drinking problem. And she also, she was very loud, and she would carry a pistol around with her. She's, rest in peace, she's not alive anymore, but a lot of people would say a lot about her, that she was really loud. And later on, I had, when I got reunited with my family, because I was in foster care, they had told me that, I said, tell me a good story about my grandmother. I want to know good stories. Like, let's celebrate her. And they were like, Mija, she was an amazing woman. Like, she was the way that she was for a reason. And they said she was loud because women were not heard. And she was loud, and she swore a lot, and she carried around a pistol because she had experienced sexual assault. And she was in fear, and she had enough. And so she walked around this world in a way that not everybody completely understood. And so as I could work out my little nerves and everything, I try and channel her, the original Julia, that was very boisterous and very loud, and took the space that she wanted. And so just talking a little bit about my experience getting in with the Young Women's Freedom Center. I was 15 years old when I got involved, and it was inside a juvenile hall. And I remember Latifah Simon had came in, and she was talking about this crisis that was happening in our communities. This was around like 2000. And she was talking about how crack had impacted our communities, and AIDS and HIV. And she was kind of speaking a little bit of truth to power to some of the things that were happening inside of the community. And something just really, she was really young at the time. She must have been like 19 years old. She was the youngest executive director in the nation, running at the time was Center for Young Women's Development, which is now the Young Women's Freedom Center. And so she came in, and right away, like, I had not seen anybody that was really speaking raw and real. And so something about that stuck out to me. And I later on became involved with the organization, going through some of the programming that they had, and eventually became an employee in 2014, excuse me, as the self-determination coordinator. And somehow, y'all, down the line, they ended up making me one of the site directors there. So I just speak to it being an intergenerational space. It also taking on and actually those that are directly impacted, and actually those young folks informing what the work looks like, and actually leading. You know, we're committed to having at least 60% of the staff be under the age of 24. So our youngest employee, I believe, is 15. And so that is my colleague, and so putting people in positions of like real positions, real meaningful economic opportunities, meaningful employment, really those experiences over time really shift the trajectory of like the opportunities that we can have in the end. I'll pause there. Thank y'all.
Thank y'all so much. It's really powerful. Can't wait for some Q&A and lusciousness to dig in a little bit more. So I'm going to pass the mic over to Vivian Anderson. First, I'm going to do the introduction. So Vivian Anderson is a distinguished community advocate who has traveled the world developing programs for youth that focus on social responsibility. Her keen ability and cross-cultural sensitivity has allowed her to lead nonprofit startups, their business formation, fund development operations. She believes in creating maximum value and results in individual lives and the world. Vivian is the founder of EveryBlackGirl Inc. The organization emerged as a response to the brutal attack of a Black girl by a school resource officer at Spring Valley High in Columbia, South Carolina in 2015. And today, EveryBlackGirl Inc.'s work with populations experiencing intersectional oppression, trauma, and responding to high stress environments centers the need of integrating self-care into all elements of the work. The 3 core programs through which Every Black Girl engages girls are weekend programming, Every Black Girl is a Leader, and expanding the girls' worldview. And I know that Vivian has been and Every Black Girl has been such a huge component of supporting families right now during this time of COVID-19. So really excited to be in conversation with you and passing it over to Vivian.
Well, hello. Hey. So I'm going to say this is an intergenerational conversation because I'm going to say I'm the elder of the group, right? And this is what it looks like for me. So yes, I'm Vivian Anderson. I'm the founder and executive director of Every Black Girl Inc. As Michelle said, we were founded after assault at Spring Valley. And I'm going to actually do this spiel because I think it's full circle. So I was actually working at GGE at the time when the assault happened, and we were doing work around push out, and we were doing work around what's happening to Black girls in schools. And when I saw the video, I couldn't sleep because every time I walked in that room, I saw those girls as the girl who was being assaulted. And I was like, I'm teaching these girls this, I'm being with them, but something pulled me to South Carolina. So what I thought was going to be a 2-day trip where I could just go and hug the girls and let them know they were okay, the founder of Girls for Gender Equity said, I saw it in your eyes. You weren't coming back. So my 2-day trip ended up me relocating my life to South Carolina, elevating the Southern Black girls' voice in this national conversation. And when we talk about intergenerational work, what are the things that I'm learning, and I'm actually still learning, is that how to lead and follow at the same time. Because one of the things that I've been doing with a lot of the girls is that, because you said, what does the collaboration look like? Giving them space to have girlhood, but also giving them space to be leaders and knowing when is which. And that's been like, okay, here we go. So I have young people who are ready to go, but then those young people, we keep piling stuff on them. And then I have to pull back and say, no, actually, here's my role in this now. And Julia said it, and where my goal is that when I do have staff, because it's just me right now, but when I do have staff, I want it to be 50%. If it's Black girls, if this is Every Black Girl Inc., 50% of this decision-making around programming should be Black girls, right? That's what I feel. But I think it's my responsibility to deal with all the IRS stuff, all the, that technical stuff. Let them be girls, I'll handle that. Y'all just have this point. So I know I'm all over the place, but y'all have had me so riled up, and I'm thinking of like, this is really what an intergenerational space looks like. And another time is like recently we had the 15-year-old in Michigan. I know people saw it when I talk about what it looks like. So there was a 15-year-old girl who was detained because she did not complete her homework, right? So when I went there to see how I can support, what ended up happening was I met some young people, some young Black girls who were like, no, we are young. That could easily be us. So I followed their lead, and I like, what do you need? I can do the backdrop. So when we talk about what is like collaboration and intergenerational collaboration looks like, it looks like that for me. When I went to Michigan, I was there, but I was following their lead. I didn't come and say, you need to do this, you need to do that. I said, how can I support? They were already leading. And then I was able to connect them once again to GGE. Y'all gonna hear GGE over and over again because I just love them so much. But actually elevate them and say, okay, that was what I was supposed to do. I came here, and I think some of this intergenerational conversation around healing, survivorship. So they asked, how did I come into this work? I was born into this work because I'm already a girl who, even before, and I think some other folks said before it became a title, I was a child. One of the things this work did, it had me like actually speak out loud in front of people that I'm a survivor. I'm a child of sexual abuse and I don't talk about it. But how I was able to be with young people because of my experience and like work through them, and then the healing that they provided me. So I think when we talk about intergenerational work, I really believe like we should look at it as like it's the give and receive, not give and take, even give and receive, the reciprocity of it all. Like, how are we in each other's lives? Like, these girls have like wisdom way beyond I would ever, like, they live some stuff I'll never live. But I've come through some places they've come, and how do we come together and hear each other and like really understand I am not in this moment in time. My survivorship is not theirs because I come from a different space and time. So I was quieted versus young girls where if I was going to give you because somebody asked about what's the best practices and things, if I was going to give them the remedy for my survivorship, it would have been like, just stay quiet, because that's what I was taught. So now in this intergenerational conversation, I get to be with young people and say, what you got to say, what you want me to do, because I won't silence you just because I was silenced. I won't silence you. So I think it's one of those things, there's no one answer to anything. And I always think it's important, no matter what, who's the most impacted should be the one speaking most. So even now when I'm speaking, I'm also speaking from a space where trust and believe. I'm asking the girls, what do you need for survivorship? So a lot of times I may be the one because I asked them and they said, I'm not ready. And I'm not going to push them and tell their stories before they're ready, right? And so I think it's like, what's the give and take, like give and receive of everything, the give and receive. And I don't know if I answered all the questions because I got so caught up in what everybody else was saying that I was just like, yeah. And it's one of those things, I got elder privilege. So y'all get to be with me. I got elder privilege. I'm the elder in the room. And it feels good because although I'm new to this work and the way you just like the way it's termed in society now, it's been my whole life. But I'm so honored and grateful that I get to be with all y'all. So I'm gonna leave it there so we can just be in conversation with one another.
Thank you so much, Vivian. Appreciate that. Love it. Elder privilege. We're here to listen and be in community with you too. So we have a little bit of time, folks, to be able to actually do some live Q&A. So for those of y'all who are tuning into the Survivors Agenda and also into YouTube, we can take some questions from the chat. And also, I know that our panelists, I had the privilege to sit in dress rehearsal where we were chatting a little bit together, more like a living room or a kitchen table. And folks are really excited about the work that one another are doing. So I would love to just open it up and start over with Tara, who is interested in like sharing some things and has some questions.
Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, to just expand on what has been shared so far, how we embody elderhood is going to look different, and supporting our youth in recognizing, right, like that they're on a continuum. They are elders to be, and charging them with that possibility of leading, of rising into their leadership, to know that like your eldership can be awkward, your eldership can be goofy, that there's no one way. And I think that has been the challenge for a lot of us, to see ourselves in the work of organizing, of activism, of advocacy, because we have a particular limited idea about what that looks like. And for us to be able to be with them, to be able to expand what that expression and embodiment looks like, to give them the freedom to show up in the way that allows them to be their full selves, to find their voice. I think that's the gift. And when we kind of locate ourselves and our stories and our experiences around where we first experienced this level of collaboration, right? It feels intuitive. We don't even think about it in the way that it's framed, but it was often for us in our homes. For me, just remembering that my siblings and cousins and I, we were a part of decision-making processes. We were part of, the care work that was needed in our families, for better or worse, right? And so to honor where our youth are, particularly for those of us who are working with parenting teens, teens who have been in the foster system, who have had a certain amount of, self-reliance, honoring the fact that, yes, we want to give them the space to play and to be youthful, and to also respect that they're making decisions for other people, for other humans, and to just keep honoring their capacity to keep growing into their understanding of themselves. And, my program is really rooted in these 4 pillars of supporting them to develop legacy skills, because our intergenerational trauma deserves an intergenerational response. And so I lift up them cultivating embodied self-awareness, this really skillful understanding of self. I lift up skillful thinking and communication, so they are developing the capacity to think critically and creatively and collaboratively, to know that we can just put ideas out there and give them breath, even if we don't have it all figured out, that we are supporting even our emerging and unfinished ideas. We are lifting up the pillar of skillful connections. What does that collective care and healthy relationship look like? We are also lifting up skillful action. What does accountability look like before harm has happened? How are we in accountable practice with one another, because we're showing up and bearing witness and holding space, committed to not cause more harm to ourselves and others? And so out of that, we are practicing a reduction of harm, and being able to point them back to that. Like every time that they are protecting a group agreements that they co-created, when they're showing up and practicing those, that we are celebrating that, we are naming that, and marking that as how they're charting their steps, peaks and valleys, through toward eldership.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Anna.
Oh.
Yeah, and so absolutely, right? So they're charting. So when I say I'm the elder, it's not a hierarchy. It's actually really about, I understand I have a responsibility to make sure that I'm letting their voices be heard. Not like, oh, I'm the elder, you do what I say, you do what I, all that they used to tell us. But like, no, until recently, when one of the girls really talked to me and said, like, I know that sometimes I just want to play. Sometimes you ask me to you want me to create the decisions, but I'm looking at you for decisions. And then you're like, no, what do y'all want to do? And she's like, no, I'm really saying, can I just come here and chill? You keep calling me into these meetings. So as an elder, when I say that elder word, it's also me being with myself and all my stuff, right? When I'm like, oh, everybody's so much younger than me and they've been doing this and I should know all these answers, but like really filling it out, saying, so when we talk about what it means to create legacy and create break the generational curses and break all these things. And Julia, has she talked about her grandmother's yeah, we want them to say, here's somebody that gave me this focus, not to take anything away from them, but to say in this moment in time, amplifying and centering youth voices, Black girl voices for me is so important. But I also know I have to also look at the girl who comes in and who's been washing the dishes all day, who had to figure out how they're going to spend groceries, and giving her a space, right? And so that's when it's when I talk about my role and they ask me, how do I come into this work? What are the things I do? I'm actually learning daily my role, where it's just oh, here's an organization that's just starting up. I know some folks to connect you to, right? And that's what I'm looking at when I'm when they talk about what the intergenerational work looks like, it's actually looking okay, I know some things. I am a little older. I've had some experience. I am a survivor. I had some other experience. How do I use this without shutting anybody else down and making my experience their experience, but also saying, now, how do we live this experience together so we can have something else look different?
Thank you, Vivian. The pandemic, coronavirus, okay? I I believe that everything is always working out in the divine and in due time, and that we are not in control of this. And we have destinies and purposes that we're here to fulfill, knowingly or unknowingly. And so about this time and this moment that we are doing this movement work, that we're doing organizing, policy work, protest, sit-ins, anything that we're doing is perfect timing. It's in the divine. And so what gives me hope so much about this work is that we are able to collab just like this today. We are all over the United States. We are in different time zones. We have different duties. We have different obligations. Our obligations and our duties might be sitting right beside us, might be in the next room, but yet we're able to still do this work. And so it's in the divine that we're still able to do this work during a global pandemic. And so for us being able to meet and collaborate over virtual town halls, plan for political movements, organize to change and transform legislation, it gives me so much hope and so much joy that we're able to still sit and do this work with strategic organizing and include the young folks and include everyone into this and include those that didn't know that this was work and that the people that have been doing this because this is what they're born into, because this is my everyday life, because every day I wake up as a woman, because every day I walk outside and I'm sexualized for what I have on, or I'm stereotyped for how my hair is, or I'm being picked on or have violence against me for who I am, especially being a woman and especially being an Indigenous woman and a woman of color. And so for us to be able to continue to do this work and to see all of you sitting here on this panel, despite what we have going on, because everyone has something going on right now, it gives me so much hope and joy. And I know that we're in our Jubilee and that stuff is conspiring. It's at the fingertips and it's about to pop. And at the front of this movement is our young folks, is our survivors, is those most impacted. And I just want to thank everyone and thank the ancestors for allowing us to continue to be able to do this work and be able to collaborate and conspire nationally and globally. Thank you.
Thank you, Najma. I just wanted to, when everybody was talking, I know that we do this thing called liberation pedagogy inside of the center. So I'm talking about folks coming from all types of, in the trenches, right? Everybody's coming and we're doing this critical education, right? And one of the things we talk about a lot of is like setting up the dojo and like being the sensei, right? And literally like the way it translates is saying that one who comes before. And at times this means something different because in some spaces, somebody may have been in discipline and practice of something long before I have, meaning that a younger person may come in and they may have been in practice of something before me. So I have to be able to step to the side in a way too, and let them be the experts inside of something. And I have to be able to be okay with that piece of it. And I think that that's something that is the beautiful, brilliant piece of it, of us all collectively coming together to do this work, is that where there are places where I have experienced a lot of, I don't know, I come with like a little bit of baggage on mine end, right? Where somebody that's younger, they're coming in with the resistance is there, where I have conformed in a little bit of the way, right? I'm participating a little bit into this, like this system, right? And I just have to acknowledge that the resistance is still there and still fresh. And a lot of really deep social justice movements started with young people being like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. And it's like, I see that you're doing it this way. And so just thinking about those spaces that are created where we step to the side and let people be experts in of their own experience and what they have been in discipline and practice of for a long time. And giving them permission for that too, because I remember coming even back to some indigenous practices, right? And I felt like, I'm not gonna do it right, I'm not gonna say it right. And I remember a chief elder had told me, like, this belongs to you. Like these ways of life and living, actually, they belong to you. And so you don't need the permission to practice this. And so I think that sometimes, even as I'm getting older, you know, I have to okay that for somebody else too. Like, this belongs to you. This actually belongs to you, and move, just to move with it. And so sometimes it's just giving that permission. And I also just to wrap it up, I really believe in the 7 generations, that healing myself heals 7 generations back and 7 generations forward. And I also have really appreciated getting put onto the Sankofa also. And so just acknowledging those 2 indigenous practices that I don't know, like, always if I can change something that has already happened, but I do know that the more that I'm in practice for myself, that it will shift and transform. It's like that little stone you throw in the water and then it makes those ripples. So thank you, everyone that is committed to doing this work and does this very selfless work to come out. And we are fighting up against structural things that makes it hard, but together, like, we're strong.
You might not be able to see all of us, but clapping, screaming, yelling. So grateful to be in this community this afternoon with all of you. Thank you, Tara, for being here. Thank you, Najma. Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Vivian. We are going to close out now, just holding some of the moments that you have shared, thinking about this belongs to us. Intergenerational organizing is ours. You know, I am, because we are all here together doing this work. And this is what intergenerational organizing looks like. We are learning from one another, taking space to step aside, connecting across land and seas, and just keeping it moving while also holding so much. So I appreciate y'all. I'm taking deep breaths with y'all, sending hugs across lands. And thank you also for our audience for being here today.